Welcome, Dr. LJ Johnson. It's such an honor to have you today on the show with your specific expertise, how you deal with woman issues and physical issues, that is, and also how you help women deal with pain. I know you do a lot more than that, and that's why you're here to tell us more. This being said, I'd like to know how it is that you became a self-love advocate or a self-love expert.
Thank you so much, Nikki. That's an amazing question. First off, I want to say thank you for allowing me to be a part of the show. And yes, how did I get into that self-love? Let's talk about it took me 16 years to be properly diagnosed with endometriosis. So managing a chronic illness, not knowing what was going on with my body, hating the things that were going on. Once I really had to sit in that for a long time, at that point, I became a huge advocate of self-care because my own health was derailed, my income, my family, my relationships, everything was being just ripped apart. So that self-care is really what got me through some of those hardest times.
And I appreciate that you're mentioning that there was some ripple effects in all those aspects of your life. Could you tell us a bit more about the effects that a woman that's got maybe endo or anything else can observe or be, I'll say victim. We're not victims, but that's the word that comes to my mind right now.
You know what? And I'm going to run with that word because we do feel victimized. But here's the thing. It's not necessarily victimized by outside factors. We feel victimized by our own body. We have a body that's not reliable. So people think we're unreliable. They're like, oh, LJ always cancels or she doesn't do this, that, and the other. And it was more like, no, LJ has a body that doesn't show up on a consistent basis. So we feel victimized in so many different ways. I think the best thing would be to identify what endometriosis is because some people have no idea. They're just like, oh, I have this horrible, crazy period. I don't know what's going on.
I'd like to know.
Absolutely. So endometriosis is uterine-like tissue found outside of the uterus. It is not a reproductive disorder. It's not a period issue. It's not you're being a weak woman and you just can't handle the period. It is much more than that. It is chronic systemic inflammation throughout your entire body. It also has autoimmune-like factors. So when I say, like you said, that ripple effect, what does it touch? It touches everything in your physical body. So it's like I said, it's not just a period issue. It can be chronic pain throughout your entire body, hormonal issues, weight gain, bloating, brain fog. I mean, let's just talk about if you're bloated all the time, right? You're not going to feel amazing. You're not going to be able to show up in your job, in your business, with your family. If you're always dealing with brain fog, you're not going to be able to remember everything. So it really does touch everything physically, mentally, socially, financially. It is very debilitating. But this is the thing that's so tricky about it as a chronic illness. It's invisible. It's not like I'm walking around and people are like, oh, looks like she has endo. It's an invisible illness. So it makes it a lot harder to manage, right? Which is why that self-care comes in because a lot of people are not going to understand what you're going through.
So how does one deal, LJ, with the fact that people have an opinion and they think maybe you're lazy or you just aren't reliable? And then so that brings, of course, negative self-image. So how do your patients or your clients deal with how people perceive them to be able to love themselves in spite of other people's feedback?
I love that question. The biggest thing I do with my patients in the very beginning, yes, we talk about the physical, the nutrition, the fitness, the supplements, all that's kind of like extra. The core and the foundation is realizing that we are not defined by chronic illness. Yes, you may have a diagnosis of lupus, fibromyalgia, endometriosis, PCOS, fibroids, all of these things. And many times we grab onto that diagnosis and we name it and we claim it. We wake up every day and we're like, my this, my this, my that. And that for some people can be a little woo-woo, but at the end of the day, waking up every morning and claiming it and being like, this is my problem, that's not always the best way to empower yourself. Not to mention, like you said, there are people that are not going to understand. Your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your family, your employer, they don't understand what's going on, once again, because it's invisible. So once you really are able to sit back and unpack that and decide that, yes, I have a chronic illness. Yes, these are all of the things that may be going on in my body, but I'm someone outside of that list.
Yes.
I am an amazing person, despite the fact that I may have chronic pain, etc. I am more than my diagnosis. And
Yes.
once we have that foundation, then you can add the tips and the tools. I always joke about it, your toolbox. That's when you can really start adding those tools. But
Yeah.
you have to realize that you're more than the diagnosis, which can be
Mm.
challenging, right? When your
Yeah.
feet hit the ground every day and you've got symptoms coming in from every angle.
Mm. Wow. Thank you so much. And definitively, the labeling part is something that in our system, health system, we do. It's useful for healthcare practitioners, but
Mm-hmm.
it can be an handicap when somebody takes on the label. Now, we know that there's that downside of labeling ourselves, but what about the benefits that some people find in using their label? Can you tell us a bit about that and maybe give us some tools how to overcome that mentality of being, I would say, not on, but clinged on those benefits?
That's a good question. I will speak from my own personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
16 years of not knowing what was going on with my body made me feel crazy. My
Mm,
doctors tried to talk me into thinking I was crazy,
mm,
and I self-doubted. I questioned myself
mm.
every moment of the day.
Yeah.
Getting that diagnosis, it was almost like a cross had been lifted, right?
Yeah.
A weight had been lifted,
Mm-hmm.
yet there was a cross that maybe had been placed back down
Mm.
because I knew what was going on, but I
Yeah.
did not know how to really snatch my life back, right? I didn't know how
Okay.
to get in the driver's seat of my
Yeah.
health. So I think many times getting that diagnosis, yes, it can be like, I always call it that throat punch Thursday where it's just like,
Yeah.
oh my God,
Yeah.
what's going on? But it's also empowering because then you know why you're waking up with the brain fog and the bloating,
Mm.
why your body is doing all of these things. So there's nothing wrong with grabbing that diagnosis
Yeah.
because it allows you to get in the driver's seat. Let's be
Mm.
honest. I mean, anyone that's plugged into this show that loves podcasts, that loves
Yeah.
researching, Pinterest, Dr. Google,
Yeah.
Instagram, all of us, we're looking for answers, right? We're
Yeah.
looking for solutions. But when you're searching and you don't even know the diagnosis, it's
Mm.
hard, right? So having
It
that
is.
diagnosis, I think, can be very empowering. We
You're right.
just don't want it to derail us to where you're spiraling and only
Exactly.
naming and claiming the negativity of that. But having
Yeah.
the diagnosis, also, I would say the biggest thing, number one, it allows you to advocate for yourself. It's
Mm.
hard to advocate with your employer, your families,
Mm.
etc., when you don't even know what's going on. You're like, something's wrong. I don't know what's going on. But when you're like, oh no, I have XYZ condition. This is what happens to my body. When I'm in a flare, I'm not able to do this, that, and the other. It allows me to actually show up and be present
Oh,
and
that's good.
advocate for myself. The
Yeah.
second thing, as a business owner, and I'm sure many of you are, as a mom, as a
Yeah.
female, whatever you're doing, having that information is empowering. It
Yes.
lets me know what I need to do. There are going to be times that maybe you're in a flare. Maybe there's times that you need to work with your cycle. I know that cycle syncing is huge. We always want to be superwoman and amazing every day. But when you're managing a chronic illness and your cycle comes, you need to know how to work with your cycle
Mm.
versus that
Yeah.
whole mentality of, oh, here comes my period. I'll be MIA for a week or two. For some people, it's a non-event. For me, my period comes and it's like, okay, cool, whatever. Everything is great. Versus others who are debilitated, right? Maybe
Yeah.
then you have to advocate for yourself and let your family know that, hey, I'm in a flare right now. This
Mm.
is what I need, right? So you've got that. And then there's also just the knowing, the power of knowing
Yeah.
what is going on with your body so that you can figure out what you need to do to, as I
Mm.
always say, to get back in the driver's seat. Because I think many times when you don't have a diagnosis, you don't have the tools, you feel like the symptoms are running the show. Like I said in the beginning, you feel like you have this unreliable body that you've just been stuck with that we didn't
Yeah.
ask for. But knowing the diagnosis really allows you to navigate that properly.
Mm. Oh, and that's great. You've been mentioning a few times getting back into the driver's seat.
Mhm.
And that's the part of the empowerment where a woman gets to take her life back and she knows that she is worthy and she can
Mhm.
apply self-love, self-care. Now, and so I understand this. And I also understand the importance of the diagnosis. I've seen it
Mhm.
with mental health patients, like especially with personality disorder, when they finally understand, why they act or why they think as they do. But sometimes, from what I've observed, some people will use the diagnosis as an excuse.
Mhm.
Do you have any comments or anything to share about that?
That's a tough one, right? Because on
Yeah.
one end, we want you to advocate for yourself, we
Yeah.
want you to communicate with everyone, but then there's also the people that are like, you know what, I'm going to sit back. I
Yeah.
don't feel well. I've got a diagnosis. I'm going to go to work and not show up. I'm not going to give 110%. Or
Okay.
you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not going to take responsibility. That project
Uh,
was due in 2 weeks. When it's not done, I'll just let him know that I had horrible brain fog or I was in another flare. And I
okay.
think that's why it's very challenging for those who are managing a chronic illness, a mental illness. It's challenging for people to take us serious when we have others, which I hate to say, and it's funny you mentioned that,
Yeah.
that are kind of abusing the system. And so it's really
Yeah.
a fine line. I think it also comes down to self-worth and self-love. Like,
Mm.
if you love yourself enough, if you accept what's going on,
Yes. Yeah.
wanting something better, right?
Yeah.
Knowing
Yes.
that, yes, I may be in pain and I may not be able to, do all the projects and do all these amazing things at work, but I'm going to do my very best. And
Mm.
so I think
Yes.
when you start struggling where you're like, whatever, like I said, you're just going to kick back, relax,
Yeah.
whatever happens, happens. That's when we need to start working on the mindset, right? I think
Uh-huh.
that's where the mindset needs to be shifted. That's where that chronic
Yeah.
illness warrior mentality,
Yes. Oh,
maybe
I
you've
love
kind
that.
of knocked the warrior part
Yeah.
to the side and you're just like, oh, I have a chronic illness. It'll be what it'll
Mm-mm.
be. But let's be honest, real talk. I mean, you still have a mortgage that is due, a car payment,
Yes.
insurance,
Mm.
family, food, all of these things. And it's not just about money,
No.
relationships, things
Yes.
that you want to do. You have these gifts and
Yeah.
callings. You're not going to be able to step into that calling. It's kind of that thing where I
Mm.
say, like, you either get in, get out, or get ran over. You can't straddle, right? You can't really
Yeah.
be in your power
Oh,
and really be that boss babe. And then on the other hand, be the poor me. You've got to really
yeah.
choose.
Oh,
And so it
yes.
can be challenging. I've had as an employer with a chronic illness,
Yeah.
definitely I have staff members that manage chronic illnesses, and it's very
Yes.
interesting. Some of them are empowered by it, and they're
Yeah.
like, hey, LJ, I'm in a flare. I know you understand. I'm like, cool, this is some things you can do. And
Yeah.
then others, like you said, every time we turn around and it's like, okay, like we need to do some mindset work at that point.
Wow. I love how you bring it out, open you are about the situation. And especially as you were talking about the woman that will take her diagnosis
Mhm.
and make the best out of it. You were standing straight, and then you were talking about the other
The
one that was
kickback.
just, yeah, relaxing.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think you're right. There is a difference. And that for me is my first thing that comes to mind is life changing, but it's a ha moment.
Mhm.
We get to know, like, let's say I have somebody that's got a chronic disease around me, and I get to know who they are. Are they that
Mhm.
empowered person, or that person will find excuses for
Mhm.
everything? So, wow. I guess that within your work, you help women to go into that place of being their best self
Mhm.
and regaining their power. Is that right?
Right, right. And it is really about motivating, encouraging, and empowering you. Because here's the thing,
Mm.
people will look at me and they're like, oh my gosh, LJ's really, I love her energy. I love this, I love that. But here's the thing, I've had to do the work. You may see me on top of this mountain right now, but I spend
Yeah.
my time letting you know how I got there. I didn't just wake
Yeah.
up pain-free one day, and everything was perfect. I didn't just take one supplement and it just changed my entire world. I roll my eyes because I get these
I love.
questions of like, what can I do? And I'm like, well, there's several things we need to do.
Yeah.
So what we have to really do is like kind of circle back and be like, okay, this is what I want. Are you willing to do the work? And in that
Mm.
empowering, that's what I really do is give you the tips and the tools. I'm huge on functional medicine. I'm huge on
Yeah.
fitness and nutrition. But once again, I think sometimes we just throw spaghetti at the wall. We're going to try this. We're going to try that.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of a new year. I am
Yeah.
calling you guys out, a CTA here, a call to action. You
Yeah.
have got to sit down right here, right now, and decide, what is your 2023 going to look like? Are
Mhm.
you going
Yes.
to sit with that mentality of, oh, it's just another horrible year and I'll be in pain and life's going to pass me by? Or you're going to be like, hey, these are my diagnoses. These are the tips and tricks I'm going to be using. These are the people I'm going to partner with, right? Maybe in your
Mm.
business, in your personal life,
Yeah.
in your health. create a team, right? And when you don't have that team, that's kind of when that negative mindset really comes in. So yes, I do it all because it takes it all, right? And it
Yes.
also, I will say, it impacts every part of your world. So physical illness is one thing, but when your mental health is down, your financial health, your social health, you don't have a network, you don't have friends, you don't have a community, all of that can be very, very impactful. So it's actually realizing that the chronic illness is a physical issue, but it really and truly does bleed into every aspect of your life.
It does. It does. And women in that situation should get support to,
Absolutely.
even when they're doing better. Because you've probably noticed this, that sometimes we start a coaching program or a program and we're, hey, I'm feeling good. And then we let go or the sisterhood power or our community. What do you have to say about that from your experience?
This is the thing. Community is important, but you have to remember as you grow and evolve, so does your community. So when I first started my healing journey, maybe I was just focused on nutrition. Maybe I just needed to clean up my nutrition and, keep on pushing. But as I grew and developed, I suddenly realized like, I don't want to put band-aids on symptoms. I don't want a pill, which is what I call it for every ill. Like I really want to get to the root of the problem. So as I delved deeper into my healing journey, so did my surroundings, so did my community. And some of you, either don't have a community, but I also want to just call some of you out. Some of you have a community right now that you've been with for 10 or 15 years. You've grown, but they haven't. Right.
Yes.
So if you want to stay accountable, if you want to stay pushing towards the top of that mountain, you have to have a community and that accountability. And that's where it comes into lifestyle changes. Anyone can do a 6-week challenge and bust their butt for 6 weeks. But it's like, okay, 6 weeks out of 52 weeks, what are we doing for the rest of the year?
And out of a life also.
Yes. Yes. So it's accountability and support is so important.
Okay. Well, this is great. So we still have a few minutes here, and what you've shared right now, I really cherish it, and I'm sure that our viewers do also. And your energy is really good, really, really good. So it makes us energized just listening to you. Now, you were talking about two things: the flurs, and then the cycle. So. I'm going to give you an open space here because I'd like to know about both, and I'm not sure we're going to have time, but can you go in maybe a deeper level on one of those two subjects?
So you said the flares, and then which was that?
The cycle.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about leaning into your cycle because that's going to kind of lead up to my freebie. So here's the thing. There are two different types of people. The person that's like, here comes my period. Once again, I'm going to kick back or I'm going to be knocked back with all these symptoms. Not your fault. Then there's the person like myself that I'm like, okay, period comes once a month, but here's the deal. I can't put my life on hold. I still have projects to do. I've got patients to see. I'm traveling, podcasting. I'm living my best life. So that's
amazing, LJ.
Absolutely. What you start to do is cycle sync. You really start to lean into your cycle. I'll just hit some high notes and we'll talk about the freebie in a minute. When you look at your cycle, issue number one is most people don't think about their cycle until they got to yank out the pads and the tampons. And then they're like, oh, my period's here. I guess it's here. Here's the thing. Your cycle, I'm calling you out, Nikki.
Thank you.
Your cycle is running all month long. Those ups and downs of emotions, that one day that you love your partner and everything's amazing. And then that day that you're like, you hate everyone, you hate your house, you hate the kitchen, you hate the paint. It's just hate all over, right? It's still hormones, right? So realizing that your cycle is going on for the entire month. Instead of dreading your period, instead of dreading these emotional ups and downs, put yourself in the driver's seat once again. Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, create a plan of what you're going to do. I will just give you a couple of nuggets. One thing you have to realize is that at the beginning of your cycle, your body is more inflamed. Spending that first 2 weeks, day 1, so let me circle back. Day 1 is when you first start bleeding. So day 1 to day 14, focusing on decreasing your inflammation. That can be exercising, drinking more water. It can also be not eating inflaming foods, maybe staying away from that gluten, wheat, and dairy, right? Because that's going to help you be more productive in the first 2 weeks of your cycle. And this is if you have a 28-day cycle. Then day 14, through 28 or till, day 14 till you start bleeding again, your body is focusing on detoxification. That works in both ways. Your body is detoxing, but also detoxing in your mental health, right? When you're working with self-love, those 2 weeks after, before your cycle starts, kind of seeing what's working for you. Are you doing a sleep routine that's working for you? Are you doing, social networking that's working for you? Are you around super negative people that you need to honestly detox? Are you needing to do a physical detox? So it's really about maximizing first 2 weeks of your cycle, day 1 to 14. What can you do to decrease the inflammation so that you can be more productive? Week 2 through 14, what can you do to remove and detox? So as we lead into the freebie, that is my freebie of how to turn your period into your superpower. What can you do so that you're no longer being slapped in the face with your period every month, right? That you can show up. So if you get that freebie, you'll get lots of fun free tips. We'll kind of throw you into an email chain and just start dropping a bunch of knowledge on you, because it is possible to turn your period into your superpower. It's just a lot of us don't have that information.
That sounds amazing.
Yes, it is.
Empowered. We want to be in that super power position, that superhero position. That's what I was looking for. Wow. Well, that's good. I know that your gift, I'm curious, and I'm sure that I could learn a lot. And I wonder, because I'm that type of person that's just easygoing and okay, my period is here. But do you give some tips like how to become aware at day 14? Because at day 14, I'm not thinking about the period no more,
Well, that's actually, maybe we could beef up the freebie and add that in.
Yes.
It's not necessarily in there, but at that point, what I always tell people, when you get the freebie, if you want more, hop on a discovery call with me and let's unpack it, right?
Amazing.
Because the tips and tools that work for you could be kryptonite for someone else, right? Like I got to get all the tea and the good info to really lead and guide you. Absolutely.
Oh, I love that. And as we're about to wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to share with our viewers today, Dr. LJ?
The main thing I would say is you're worth it. It's okay to feel down. It's okay to not be okay. But at the end of the day, you've got to encourage yourself sometimes, because no one else around you is going to do it. You've got to empower yourself. That day that you feel that energy, grab that community so that when you're feeling defeated, when your mindset is not strong, that community will be there to lift you up.
Wow, that's encouraging. Dr. LJ, I already mentioned your energy. There's also your knowledge and how you seem really welcoming. So certainly, if I were to want to know more, I would opt on that call with you to continue the discussion that we started today. So once again, it was fun interviewing you today, and it was also an honor. Thank you so much for your generosity with your gifts, and also with your generosity sharing your knowledge with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Nikki. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure, immense pleasure. Bye-bye. Amazing.
Perfect.
Yes.
That was good. I love that. That was really good. Flowed well. Flowed perfectly.
It did. It was fun. We laughed. So it's a good interview, and I know that viewers are going to connect with you. Your energy is awesome, and I love you.
Thank you.
Really how you were showing it, and the fact that you embodied it was that's where I got the haha. Yeah.
I love what I do. I'm like, what can I say? I love what I do. I love it. And that's where the energy comes from, right? Like it is because I optimize my hormones. My hormones are balanced. So
great.
That's another plus.
It is all good. So we won't have any editing to do. So that's good. So the next step, I'll be sending you an email. Okay. I'm going to reattach the contract for you. And once I've spoken with the editing team, I'll be able to have a clearer vision on if it's going to be the 20th or the 27th. So as I get some info, I'm going to share it with you. This being said, interviews are being recorded, meeting a lot of amazing men, women, couples, and I'm excited that you're part of this first Love Yourself First show.
Yes, so absolutely. I would love to definitely stay connected and do any future events. I love your energy as well. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, my pleasure. And if ever you think of other self-love experts, I'm always interested in connecting with like-minded people.
Yep,
Okay,
absolutely. Thank you.
have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.